welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to talk about orchid spikes, and most exactly I will explain to you when and how you should cut orchid spikes, and you will see this is pretty easy, but this really depends a lot on the particular orchid we are talking about. So here I will start with Phalaenopsis orchids. We can see that my orchid is not really all that healthy. After I have purchased it, it did grow this leaf and then this one, which were considerably smaller, and she did try to push up this spike and this one, but then they stopped growing. You can see I had not cut them because the orchid seems that it has enough phosphorus to grow them, but she was actually lacking roots. But now she has started to regrow roots again, and leaves also. And the most exciting thing, it is the new spike she is producing, or side branch. So on Phalaenopsis orchids I would not particularly cut the spikes unless they are dried. So if your spike is green, you should totally keep it, and if you want to cut it, maybe your orchid is very sick, or you just want to encourage the orchid to start to grow vegetatively, you should cut it somewhere here at the base with a sterilized scissors or pruners. Mine are sitting in alcohol right now. Yeah, on this particular one we can see that the tip is dried in here, and here my grandma managed to completely snap it. So I won't cut here because to promote Phalaenopsis orchids to grow side branches, you should cut the spike exactly how is here above a node, but or like here. And here we can see that because the spike or the tip of the spike is dried, I can safely cut it somewhere in here, I believe, before this node. So I would leave about 5 centimeters there, and this is pretty much what I will do today with this particular one, just to show to you exactly how it is done. And that is all. This is super easy to do, and on Phalaenopsis you should not exaggerate with this, because they are quite easy to be induced into blooming again, and you can draw quite a few energy from it. So I would just leave my orchid do its thing. If you see your orchid has your Phalaenopsis orchid has the tendency to absorb the old spikes, most probably she has a deficiency of phosphorus. My orchid, even though she didn't want to grow leaves and roots, she did keep the spikes because she did had enough phosphorus. Now as I said, Phalaenopsis can branch out quite easily, and that is quite a cool thing. But some other orchids usually don't branch, like Zygopetalums, Cattleyas, Oncidiums can branch, but that depends on the genus. So again, if you cut the spike on an Oncidium above a node, you may trigger growth. Also on Tolumnias. But I will actually show to you another thing. So here I have an Oncidium orchid, and as I said before, I prefer to leave the spikes to be absorbed naturally, and I prefer to cut them when they are already dry, because the orchid did spend some energy to grow it, and I think you should permit her to absorb whatever nutrients she has put into that. So that is how easy I done it. just with a snap, and I don't need to apply anything on this cut wound because the spike was already dry. But in the previous case, in the case of that but in the previous case, in the case of this Phalaenopsis, I will apply a bit of cinnamon on the cut wound because we don't want to get infected. And here in front of you, you can see that I have a Vanda orchid with a dried spike. So for this, again, I will go as close to the leaves as I can. Probably here, and I will just snap it. That easy. I really like to snap them when they are dried because it's easier, and I limit the tissue to get. I limit any possibility of infection of the tissue. So that was very easy. We can see the old stumps in here as well. In time it will get super dry. Now I don't really have a cutlet to show to you how to cut the spike on a cutlet, but I would cut it somewhere around here. You can see like it was done on this one, and I would apply some hydrogen peroxide on the wound because if you get any cinnamon on the leaves, you will dry them, so I wouldn't do that. Now here I have an example of an orchid which is properly fertilized. Here I have a Miltoniopsis orchid, and she didn't want to absorb the spikes, even though these spikes are not in bloom for about 2 months now. This is because the orchid is properly fed, and if she is happy, she won't absorb them. She will just keep them green until a later time when she will actually need those resources. But in my case, a lot of orchids do keep their spikes green even for months and months, so I really like that. That is an indication for me that they are properly fed. Let me see. Zygopetalums also don't branch out, so once the spike gets completely dry, I would cut it somewhere on the base, as close to the base as I can. What else to show you guys? Catasetums also usually don't branch out, so you can cut the spikes once they are dry. And basically any type of orchid, if the spike dried up, you should cut it because it's only a possibility for you to knock the orchid over, and that is not good at all. So that is what I usually do. I don't cut spikes unless they are dried, and I don't usually force orchids into reblooming like here. The spike was cut here because the top part started to dry, and I wanted to prevent that, and of course the orchid stopped, but this was about a year ago, and just now the orchid is starting to produce this side branch. So yeah guys, this is very easy to do, and if you respect these easy rules, don't cut the spikes if they are still green, let them absorb the energy, and if you want to encourage some side branches, you can cut above the node, and the orchid most probably, if it has energy, will push up a side branch. Okay, I didn't mention, but leaving the spikes on Phalaenopsis orchids especially is a great way to encourage them also to produce keikis. For example, this orchid I have purchased it, and the crown managed to snap. From here we can see it just doesn't have any crown there. But the orchid itself was healthy. She can still photosynthesize, she has a lot of roots, healthy roots, and she has produced already 3 keikis, which I have removed. And now she's producing here one more keiki, here another one, here another one, and she didn't absorb the spikes because she has enough phosphorus. I fed her correctly, she's in semi-hydro, and I'm sure she will produce more keikis from every single node until she will remain out of them. And she's still having here a tip, which I'm not sure how active that can be anymore, but that is that. So I might even have 10 keikis from one single phalaenopsis, which otherwise, if I would have cut the spikes once she finished blooming, I pretty much would have thrown her away, because the chances of her to survive would have been very, very little. But this way, with the spikes, she is continuing to grow through her keikis. So alright guys, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below, and I will be more than happy to answer them for you. Thank you very much for watching, and see you all next time. Bye!